I'd like to call to order the City of Camarillo Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Mr. Secretary, you take roll, please.
Commissioner Vandermeulen.
Present.
Commissioner Murphy.
Here.
Commissioner Davidson.
Here.
Vice Chair Lamone.
Here.
And Chair Edsel.
Here. If we'll stand for the flag salute, Commissioner Davidson will.
Can I sit for the flag salute?
Hand over your heart and pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Okay, the next item on tonight's agenda is our consent calendar. Okay, then moving on to the next agenda item is the public comments, and this is the opportunity for people that want to speak on an item that's not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody here that wants to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda? The only thing, I guess, for the record, we got one email on a non-agenda item that'll be in the record, but it was basically pointing out that there's a vacant lot behind Rancho Rosales School behind the Whitford townhomes, and they thought it would be great to have the Park and Rec take over that field and make it into a playground or something. So this is probably really for the Park and Rec, but we'll enter that in the record. And with that, I'll close the public comment section and open our public hearing tonight. The addendum to the final mitigated negative declaration 2009-6 at the village at the park. And staff's going to make a presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Edsel and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you is a request from HEG Investment and TFR Investment Companies for an amendment to the Village at the Park specific plan, a change of zone, and a commercial plan development permit to construct a 2190 square foot drive-through coffee shop. And the site of the proposed drive-through coffee shop is located within the Village at the Park specific plan, south of the US 101, east of Village at the Park Drive, and to the west is the Residence Inn Hotel, and there are existing condominiums to the east and the south. And to provide you with a little bit of background, in 2009, Tract 5753 was approved for the subdivision of 10 acres into 8 lots, which included the project site. Additionally, CUP 307 and CPD 236 were approved for the development of 42,630 square feet of commercial space and 36 townhomes. The 36 townhomes were built, which you can see off of West Park Court, but the commercial buildings were never constructed. The general plan designates the site of the proposed drive-through for general commercial development. The project does not propose any changes to the general plan. The land use plan for the Village at the Park specific plan has a mix of residential, commercial, and mixed-use land use designations. The site of the proposed drive-through is currently designated mixed use. The applicant is requesting to amend the land use from mixed use to commercial on 0.94 acres for the drive-through use, which is shown in pink. And it's where the star is. Additionally, the applicant is requesting the specific plan to be amended to allow for drive-through uses in the commercial land use area, with the building design subject to the Planning Commission's approval. The site of the proposed drive-through is currently zoned Village Commercial Mixed Use, or CMU for short. A corresponding change of zone is proposed to change the drive-through site from CMU to Commercial Plan Development, or CPD for short. The change of zone is being requested because drive-through uses are currently not permitted in the CMU zone, but are allowed in the CPD zone. Staff has evaluated the request, and because of the location being at the edge of the specific plan area, adjacent to the freeway interchange, and that it is already zoned CPD across the street, the continuation of the CPD zoning at this location is reasonable. The site was also previously approved for commercial development in 2009. The Starbucks coffee shop is proposed to be 2,910 square feet with a drive-through and outdoor patio seating. The drive-through will have 2 lanes, which are shown over here at the top, and then they will merge into one once they place their order, and then they will continue through the drive-through lane, which has a freestanding decorative trellis element over it, and then continue to pay and pick up their order, which also has a covered attached trellis element over the window. The drive-through will provide a queuing capacity for 15 vehicles, which exceeds the code requirement to provide a minimum of 10. According to the applicant, the Starbucks drive-through will employ 20 to 30 people and will operate from 4:30 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. The drive-through speaker, which will be on this side of the building, is conditioned to have automatic volume control that will adjust the outbound volume based off of the outdoor ambient noise level. When the ambient noise level naturally decreases at night and the early morning, the speaker volume will also decrease. Additionally, the ordering area of the drive-through is situated along Village at the Park Drive, so the noise at the order board will be directed away from the existing and future residential uses. The project complies with the development standards and complies with the height, lot coverage, and setback requirements for the proposed CPD zoning. The project site is located within a half mile of the Metrolink station, and therefore under AB 2097, the city cannot impose minimum parking requirements. However, the applicant has elected to provide 26 on-site parking spaces for the customer's convenience. The project also includes grading of lots 1 through 6 of tract 5753, which is outlined in orange on this slide. And this will allow the on-site circulation to be completed, extending the driveway from the existing traffic circle, which is down here, all the way up and through to West Park Court. There's no pending applications on the remaining lots within the tract. However, they are designated in the certified housing element for by right high-density residential development and are owned by the same property owner as the Starbucks site. The area north of the proposed Starbucks site is proposed to be paved as a parking lot and landscaping, as this area does have a fault setback area, so no structures are allowed within that area. And that parking will later serve the future uses that will be developed, as well as the proposed drive-through. And vehicle access to the project will be provided by a new driveway on Village at the Park Drive. That will be a right turn in and out. It's right here. And then there's also 2 new driveways at the end of West Park Court that are proposed. So those are depicted by the red stars on the slide. And access is also provided by the existing driveway on Village at the Park Drive, which allows for right turn and left turn in, but right turn out only. And that's right here. And as well as these are 2 existing driveways on West Park Court. So the internal circulation will all be connected, which is proposed to be done in conjunction with the development of the Starbucks project. The proposed Starbucks coffee shop measures 35 feet tall in height to the top of the tower. The building is consistent with the Village at the Park specific plan and community design element, as it is designed in a Spanish style of architecture and incorporates stucco, wall tiles, and stone veneer. The building roof line is broken up by a tower element and a raised parapet. The project will also feature a decorative trellis over a portion of the drive-through lane and a covered area for outdoor seating. And then on this slide, the upper left elevation faces east, the upper right elevation faces north, the bottom left elevation faces toward Village at the Park Drive to the west, and then the bottom right elevation faces south. These next few slides are renderings to give you a better 3D perspective of the building. So this is the northwest corner of the building. And this is the southwest corner of the building. And that's the pickup window right here. And this is the southeast corner of the building. And that was the southeast corner. And then this is the northeast corner of the building. And you can see there will be a outdoor patio with covered trellis that will be provided on that side of the building. In 2009, a final mitigated negative declaration was adopted for the prior mixed-use project that included the proposed project site. And then for this project, it was evaluated under CEQA, and it will not result in any conditions that would require a subsequent environmental review or a subsequent EIR. Therefore, an addendum to the mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the proposed project. So before I get to the recommendation, a question that someone might be asking is why another Starbucks? So when a proposal comes in, staff reviews the zoning and the proposed use. We don't select or choose the name of the company or the brand, as that is a decision of the property owner and which company they decide to negotiate with. So I will conclude by saying that staff has reviewed and found the project to be consistent with the policies of the city's general plan, the Village at the Park specific plan, and economic development strategic plan. The project proposes a high-quality design utilizing a Spanish style of architecture, which is similar to the adjacent commercial and residential buildings, and is consistent with the specific plan and community design element guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council approval of an addendum to MND 2009-6, adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council approval of an amendment to the Village at the Park specific plan, adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council approval of change of zone number 336 on 0.94 acres from commercial mixed use to commercial plan development, and adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council approval of commercial plan development permit number 255, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I think I'll start down at this end. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Davidson?
No questions at this time. Comment I'll reserve for later.
Okay. How about you, Commissioner Lamont?
Thank you so much for your report. I do have one question. I understand that the at least one purpose of the zoning change is to allow for the drive-through. That is not allowed under the current designation, is that right?
Correct.
What other changes does that allow for? What other impacts beyond the drive-through should we know about?
So essentially, just on the 0.94 acres, it would go from CMU to CPD. So all of the uses that are currently allowed under the CPD zone would be allowed on this site, the 0.94 acre site.
So beyond the drive-through, what is currently not allowed, that will then also be allowed beyond drive-throughs?
To be honest, I haven't done a comparison between what's allowed in the CPD zone and not allowed in the CMU zone, other than the drive-through use. So I don't have a full list of uses that are allowed in one but not the other.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because it's just the 94 acres, right, the 0.94 acres, where the change would take place, and that's the entirety of what the Starbucks would occupy?
Correct.
So it wouldn't change the designation beyond just the Starbucks business?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And the only commercial CPD zone in the Village at the Park specific plan would be the proposed site here and what is already developed as the Residence Inn Hotel. And then there is no other CPD zone in Village at the Park other than that.
Okay, so it wouldn't affect, just want to confirm, it wouldn't affect another parcel, for example, where then it would allow for like a gas station or something like that. That's not currently permissible.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Murphy, any comments?
Yes, thank you for that wonderful presentation. The parking lot to the north, did you say that that is going to be built out with striping and as we're looking at? Yes, the parking lot to the north. As a part of this project, that will be paved out?
That is correct. That is what the applicant is proposing to do. Not only just build a Starbucks drive-through, but complete all the grading for what you see in the orange outline,
Yeah.
minus the super pads for the future by right residential development. And also they would install the parking to the north with this project.
Okay. And so for a while, these parking spaces will be sort of in limbo until new projects come along, right? That would either need to utilize the parking space or reconfigure it. Is that-
The way that the parking spaces are reconfigured wouldn't be impacted, or we don't anticipate those to be impacted by the future development of what goes in here.
Okay.
And the applicant is here who could further elaborate on their plans for the rest of the site, which from our understanding, once the Starbucks gets through entitlement, should that happen, they would then be able to proceed with planning out for the rest of the site.
Okay, yes, I would like to hear from the applicant on that, because I'm thinking of those other parcels, since this we would change to a CPD.
Correct.
Is there anything that would prevent the other parcels from doing the same thing, converting to PDP and also doing drive-through
No.
facilities?
No, because the rest of the site is identified in our housing element for by right high-density residential. So no, that wouldn't be changed. We would not be able to do that.
Okay. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. How about Ms. Vandermolen?
I don't have any questions really for staff. However, a comment for me, I would have preferred rather than a Starbucks. I know everybody loves Starbucks and a lot of people use Starbucks, but being so close to the park, I would have preferred something that was a little more family friendly, family oriented, you know, that people that are at the parks could come over and get more use out of just, those are my thoughts on this. So I just
Okay.
wanted to share that,
Okay.
even though it's already going to the Starbucks.
Thank you. And then I had a question on the parking, follow-up with Tom. With that, if it's gonna be built out in, at the time that Starbucks is built, is that gonna be available for the soccer fields to park there? Is that one of the thoughts?
That is a good question, and the applicant can definitely answer that one.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause that parking over there that they have now is impacted, which is kinda
Yes.
nice to see, but, I think to stop it, you'd probably have to fence it off, but, if you didn't want them to park there, but. All right, so we'll open our public hearing. And, as the applicant, we have a card from Dennis Hargrave.
Good evening, Chairman Edsel and members of the Planning Commission. Dennis Hardgrave representing the HEG Investment Company and TFR, which are both HEG family entities. I'll give you a little bit of background because I'm as old as this project and a lot older. But I have been with the HEG family. We initiated the village at the Park Specific Plan over 20 years ago. We will have our 20th anniversary as an occupied community in 2025, which is pretty hard to believe. But we're proud of how the community looks, how it operates. I live in the neighborhood from day one. I've been able to see this, be a guinea pig in this lab myself, and so we are always sensitive and aware of what's going on there. I serve as a resident on the Master HOA board as well, so I hear everything that anybody has to say out there. So with that background, staff has done a good job of clearing up, giving you the history of this particular site. In 2009, after several years of working on a plan with staff, we did get the approval that led to the City Ventures townhomes that are on what we'd call lots 7 and 8. Those are where the blue stars are on the lower right and lower part. Those are those occupied townhomes and mixed use. At the same time, we had a shopping center design approved for what I'd call everything east of the purple square. A rectangle, and that included a drugstore / grocery store type building and some inline retail. As you know, the retail industry has completely been reinvented in that time. For 15 years, we've attempted to get a grocery store or a drugstore tenant to come. Everybody from Trader Joe's we've asked, to Gelson's, to you name it, to smaller sub-regional people who weren't national credit tenants who couldn't really afford to build a building. And ultimately, everyone's come back and said the trade area is too small for a grocery store, and there's too many other grocery stores. And in the meantime, Walmart grocery, Target, everybody's selling groceries now. So we do not have a viable grocery store location here. And so as a result, we worked closely with staff when you had to update your housing element over the last couple of years. And then I believe it was March of 2023, yes, that you had the hearing at the City Council where you developed the by right ordinance for this site at the requirement of the state. HCD said you've got to give something here that's a by right project. Now, we've worked closely with your staff so many years, and we care so much about how this community turns out that the project that comes forward on that will be one that we'll all be proud of. But in the meantime, for the economic viability of this parcel, and in order to do some affordable housing, we had to have a revenue generator. We were unable to, with the purple pad and the one right below it, for 15 years, unable to get any fast food users to come to those pads without a drive-through, just period. Would not happen. And so the compromise we felt that made the most sense was ultimately let's carve out this parcel because Starbucks does have believe it or not, a gap in their freeway-related drive-through facilities up and down Ventura County. And they do have a demand. None of the other people are expanding. Coffee Bean isn't, Pete's isn't, and so there was no other user. We feel like with the mixed-use component that we would have in what might come in the future project, we will have a small component of mixed use. We will be open to entertaining a food user for there. I don't know if they'll be willing to come because of the seasonality of soccer. You know, a business doesn't run on 14 to 16 Saturdays a year plus 10 tournament days, you know, to say that we can run a business. Village at the Park has had a hard time. I have had an office in the mixed use for most of that time. Had a hard time supporting anybody doing food sales of any kind. You know, they've turned over several times. So I agree with you. It'd be great if we could have it, but even the food service industry is in upheaval. You know, we hear constantly how many people are laying people off. So with that, we're focused on the quality of what we're designing and what we're bringing forward, and we look forward to moving ahead with this project. As far as the circulation and the improvement, yes, the parking lot will be put in. We've successfully, at the end of Village Commons Boulevard, where the Heegees have an office and a 3-story apartment project at the end of that street, at the end of the mixed use, we've successfully managed to keep people from parking in our parking lots there. We've got kind of polite signs on Village Commons Boulevard, and we have 2-hour parking limits there during the day that most people respect. It'll be a challenge dealing with that upper parking lot. We know that will be. I don't anticipate that it will be ever proposed as here's overflow for the park district. They've got a few areas they could still expand. They just have to deal with some water quality permitting issues on that dirt area they have when you first drive in. But there's ways, you know, we will cooperate and work with them. If there's any way we can, we will. But our design for the sports park when we did it was it met all the needs that they had at the time. They've just programmed very heavily. That's about the only way we can state it. And they've worked hard to be good neighbors with us within the neighborhood by putting up signage. If you've seen tournament days, you know, no parking in the neighborhoods and things like that. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have, and, you know, look forward to your recommendation and coming back with the rest of the projects in the near future.
Any questions of the applicant? I'll start down with you, Beverly.
Okay, thank you. Since you're on one of the HOA boards, and we've got the existing residentials down here, and one of the conditions is that the applicant must form an owners association to provide maintenance for the rest of this new part.
Correct.
How is this divided up? What is the homeowners association now like for the residential? Is that 2 different homeowners associations, or is it all one? And are those condos, or are they?
Those are townhomes, or condo townhomes. Those are private ownership units.
But
There's 36.
They don't own the land, though.
They do own the land as well, yes.
They do own the land that they're on?
I think they're fee title, but they may be condo, but the Heegees do not have any underlying ownership of those existing buildings. So
Okay.
it's either owned by their association or it's owned in fee by the people.
Okay.
I believe they were townhomes by design, and so they don't have an airspace component to them. I believe that the retail, those 4 shop spaces or retail spaces are separate condoed units. So those are by condo. But
Okay.
they have a maintenance operation and responsibility for their streets. And that upper blue star or purple star, which is one of their driveway accesses, would not connect to our Starbucks. So there wouldn't be people driving through their alleys to get to Starbucks. It would be a separate driveway. And in fact, there can be no physical connection between those existing people's driveways and any new project. We can't pair garages back up against them because that's their private lane in there.
Okay.
There is shared maintenance, I believe, for the roundabout and the area coming on the lower street so that people can both use that. There are reciprocal easements recorded for that on the map. What's odd about this is the final map recorded on this over a decade ago. You know, so this is not a new tentative map, which is why you're not hearing that. This is only, there's an approved lot line adjustment already to create the Starbucks parcel, and this is an amendment basically to the specific plan and implementation of a tract map. That's a weird detail, but
So to recap, all the residential, the townhomes are a different ownership.
correct,
You know, all the rest is under one single ownership.
correct.
And so, and is Starbucks going to just lease the land, or are they gonna end up purchasing that?
It's a great question. So I should have mentioned that. Starbucks is a tenant in a building that the Hegis will own, that
Okay.
they will build and own on a tenant lease.
Okay.
So ultimately, you know, if 20 years from now Starbucks doesn't exist, I don't know how that happens, but if they don't exist, somebody else could move in there. It would still be the Hegis building.
Okay. And I think that answers that part of the question. One of the things that I read that said, as far as on traffic, like 35 cars per hour on the peak hour in the morning,
Mhm.
knowing Starbucks and knowing the large areas that this one will be drawing from,
Mhm.
that seems a little low to me.
That would be new trips, is my understanding, because in other words, there are already a number of pass-by trips that would happen. I'll give you a hypothetical example. Not everybody who has children at Rancho Rosal School lives in the neighborhood. It's the Pleasant Valley School District is a district of choice, so people, sign up to go to a different school or whatever. But as people have dropped their kids off and they're getting on the freeway to, say, head back across town or wherever, they may be a stop-by trip. If somebody lives in this community or in the apartments down
That's-
below, yeah.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
that the apartments down,
Mhm.
I want to say townhomes facing
Mm-hmm.
Lewis, all the new development that's going to be going in on Pleasant Valley Road and Lewis.
Correct, yeah.
And, I mean, that one huge apartment complex.
Right.
Those you'll get customers from all of those areas coming up to Starbucks.
Correct, and I think your traffic engineers can verify it, but the level of service at the Village at the Park intersection at the ramp is like a level of service A, is the best of my knowledge in that area. It's the least impacted interchange in town, other than like every other intersection, 15 minutes when school's starting in the morning. That's
Right.
about the only time, so.
But it's the worst place on the freeway when you're coming down, especially if you get on the entrance before that coming
Mhm.
south, and then you get all the people moving over to get off.
It is, and
It's
that's.
the worst place on the freeway that I can think of.
It's a learning curve for everybody who lives with it. I go through it 4 times a day probably. So, but it is, and that's not related specifically to what we're
Right,
dealing
but-
with here. Yeah.
Yeah. And, let me see. I noticed when I looked at these might be more for our traffic department, but looking at it, if somebody wanted to go through Starbucks and come south, you can't really get there easily. So my questions would be, are they gonna have to go over to West Park Court to go out? Will there be a U-turn sign at the signal? Instead of going straight to the freeway or over to Pettit, will they be able to make a U-turn to come and go south?
I don't anticipate a U-turn for that. I would assume, and we've always assumed, that the movement that's why we're building out that upper parking lot, so people could go out West Park, because there is no traffic on West Park.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed like, to me, that seems like a big inconvenience for somebody that's kind of driving through.
Yeah, in a perfect world, the Caltrans would have let us make a 4-way intersection out of Pettit Street and the 101 off-ramps, but they kiboshed that in 2004 and 2005 when we were first
new
designing
building.
the project. They said they do not do 4-leg off-ramps anymore, so they only do T off-ramps at the most. So there was a T existed before we existed with Village at the Park that used to go to the Jehovah's Witness building, along the frontage, but they had to close a leg to make that work.
Okay. That's all my questions for right now.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Commissioner Murphy?
No questions.
Commissioner Lamone?
I do. Thank you for that, the background
Yeah.
in terms of your search for another commercially viable tenant. That's informative and I think helpful also for the public.
Yeah.
That allows a lot of those questions about the uses. So can you describe a little bit about the seating, how the seating both inside and outside? Given the location, this will be a community hub, and I've noticed that some Starbucks are modifying the internal use where there's very minimal seating, and well, both inside and outside actually. So can you
Right.
speak to that?
Yeah, the interior seating there, they do have that stand-up area and that queuing area. You're right, it's less, but they do have a 270 square foot area that's seating inside and a large patio space outside. Now, that patio space, the number of seats actually becomes less about how many parking spaces you have, but it's how many permanent seats you show drive the plumbing code for how many restrooms you have to have. So suddenly, if you show 12 tables outside permanently, as opposed to some of the pop-up stuff that was allowed during COVID, if you show 12 tables outside, then suddenly you would have to have 3 bathrooms or so many more fixtures than you would normally need. So the concept will be to have outdoor seating and indoor, but we do meet the parking code. Ironically, as staff pointed out, we don't have to meet any parking codes because we're within half mile of MetroLink. We feel like we can possibly look at adding more tables, as the demand is there, because we will have a large parking field which can be shared, in the future as well. So I don't know if that's a perfect answer, but I do recognize that this site should be used a lot. There should be a lot of people, particularly from the neighborhood, who would be riding a bike or walking up there. Because as you know, from the neighborhood, there's plenty of dog walkers all the time out there. And so I would imagine that'll be fairly frequent.
Yeah,
But we would have to work with staff to stay within the legality of the permit and verify that we can park whatever we need to do.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine it would become a meeting spot, right? A community
Yeah,
hub for
we
community
hoped that
activities.
was gonna happen 20 years ago with the one at the corner that turned into a beauty salon. That's why that patio was out there right at the corner at Village Commons and Village at the Park Drive. We put a big patio there, and the first tenant we had was a independent coffee shop, and they could not make it, but it just seems so natural. But at least maybe people will be attracted to Starbucks.
And so there will be facilities then?
Yes, yeah, there'll be outdoor seating, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, but there'll be restrooms inside?
There will be restrooms
Okay.
inside, yes. It's just how many fixtures. If you showed too many tables, then suddenly
Sure.
they'd say, you need 5 stalls now, and suddenly you've got basically a bathroom with a Starbucks attached to it if it gets
Got it.
too
Okay.
big.
So in that 200 and some square foot area, approximately how many tables will there be there?
I think I'm trying to back into it because the parking spaces, it was 25 spaces required, and I believe it was like seating for 20-some people inside. Yeah,
Great,
it
thank you.
wasn't a small, I've been to some specialty shops lately, you're right, that have like 4 seats or 6 seats.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Davidson?
Again, I also want to thank you for the backstory. That's incredibly informative and helps to alleviate some of my maybe more surfacey concerns. Can we get the shot that's the close-up of the property that shows more of the turn lane? There we go. I'm no traffic engineer and I don't know radiuses and things like that, but it sure seems to me that a person leaving the drive-through and then wanting to get on the freeway southbound is going to have to make a very sharp U-turn to get to that exit lane that then turns right onto Village at the Park. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Has that been accounted for so that I drive a Toyota Tundra and that turn scares me. In other words,
Yeah.
It just seems like you're going to be having people backing up and that kind of thing. Can you just alleviate my concern that that's a large enough radius curb line that allows for
Yes, we did actually widen that at the request of one of the early staff reviews we did. I think it was a little narrow, and they came back and said, hey, can you make sure a template works on this so it goes? The other alternative, fortunately, with this size, if you think of almost any on-ramp, if I wanted to get in the left turn pocket and I was at peak hour, I probably would continue straight down and go out that existing driveway that's further south.
You
know?
and I think like that.
Yeah, that, I mean.
Sadly, others don't, but I totally
traffic-
agree with you.
Yeah, traffic engineers always tell me that we all drive like water, right? We go to the path of least resistance ultimately, and I go, I couldn't get in the left turn lane. I gotta go down here.
Okay,
So.
thank you for that. Thank you, I appreciate that.
But
you
you're
gave me
right,
the
it is tight, and our constraint on it was the fact that the earthquake fault setback zone is up there north. We at one point had a larger building even on this, a 2-tenant Starbucks building, and it just became problematic to deal with some of those issues.
Perfect, I appreciate your answer.
All right, thank you. So, I think we have solid questions. So is there anybody else tonight that would like to speak on this agenda item? Well, before I close the public hearing, we had, just into the record, we had 4 emails today that 2 were in favor and 2 opposed, and that oppositions were someone just didn't want a Starbucks, and the other one was they didn't want a drive-through, and I think we addressed those issues, but these will be entered for the record. And with that being said, and no one else to talk, I'll close the public hearing, and then we have an architectural review report, Beverly?
Yeah, we looked at it, and architecturally, we really didn't have too much other than to say it looked great. It satisfies the style, the colors move in. We like the differences on the ceiling, or the top with the tower and then the lower. So it has a lot of character to it. So we recommend approving the building, the architectural part.
Thank you. So, any commissioner discussion before we call for resolution? Commissioner comment or discussion? Okay, and then on this, just procedurally, do we vote on all these as a block, or do we take them one at a time?
So we'll be taking the resolutions one at a time.
Okay. So I guess we'll call for a resolution.
Okay, resolution number PC 2024-12, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo recommending approval of an addendum to the final mitigated negative declaration, MND 2009-6.
Move to waive further reading and vote to adopt.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Commissioner Murphy, seconded by Commissioner Davidson. So we'll take a vote, please.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen,
Yes?
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lamone,
Yes.
Chair Edsel.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so the next resolution is PC number 2024-13, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo recommending approval to the City Council of a request by HEJ Investment and TFR Investment Companies for an amendment to the Village at the Park specific plan.
I'll make a motion that we waive further reading and adopt the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, been moved by Commissioner Davidson, seconded by Commissioner Murphy, and call for a vote.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen,
Yes?
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lamone,
Yes.
Chair Edsel.
Yes.
Okay, the third resolution tonight is a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo recommending approval of a request by HEJ Investment and TFR Investment Companies for a change of zone from village commercial mixed use to commercial planned development involving approximately 0.94 acres, further described and set forth as change of zone 336.
I move to waive further reading and adopt the resolution.
I'll
sec-
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Lamone, seconded by Commissioner Vandermolen, and please take a vote.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen,
Yes?
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lamone,
Yes.
Chair Edsel.
Yes.
Okay, so the last resolution on this item is resolution number PC 2024-15, resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo approving a request from HEG Investments and TFR Investment Companies for a commercial plan development permit CPD 255 for the construction of a new 2,190 square foot coffee shop with a drive-through lane on parcel A of lot line adjustment 563A and grading of lots 1 through 6 of track 5753 within the Village at the Park specific plan area.
I move to waive further reading and adopt the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, that motion was made by Commissioner Lamone and seconded by Commissioner Murphy. Please take a vote.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lamont,
Yes.
Chair Edsel.
Yes. We all set? Okay, thank you. We're ready. The next item, discussion items. Did you have the commissioner discussion? If there's no discussion items, okay, then director's report from David Sanchez.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. Couple items of business tonight. One, our next Planning Commission meeting that's regularly scheduled would be November 5th. That is Election Day. We don't have any items pending for it. We're going to cancel that meeting. Following that, the next regularly scheduled meeting would be December 3rd. We have a couple items that we'll be tracking for that, and so we plan on having that meeting.
Okay.
And then another kind of item of business, our planning team is growing. I'm no longer the newest person on the team. So I'd like to introduce Megan Sinkula. She's here tonight. She's our new senior planner. She comes to us from Westlake Village. And we're really excited to have her. You'll see her presenting, some complex projects, potentially long-range planning projects. I just invite you to join me in welcoming her.
Welcome. I
Welcome.
thought you were
Welcome.
someone in opposition to the project, but you didn't jump up, so, yeah, thank you. Welcome to the city.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioner comments tonight? Put down this in, no? Okay, we're in adjournment. Thank you all.